Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a true mystery that has literally terrified a nation for over 2 decades. We're looking at a story that starts out sounding like, your typical urban legend, but it ends in real, documented medical emergencies and absolutely tragic deaths. It's widely considered the darkest paranormal case in the history of Mexico. We are talking about the curse of Josue Velasquez. Now, to set the stage here, picture this. In 2002, a late-night radio call about a demonic pact goes out over the airwaves. Fast forward to 2011, and both the beloved host who took that call and a priest who tried to help the caller were mysteriously dead. This isn't just a spooky campfire story, guys. This is a documented chain of deadly events, and we're going to break down exactly how it all unfolded. So, let's dive right in.
Section 1. The Midnight Radio Confession.
To really understand how this dark timeline began, we actually have to travel back to the early 2000s. Our story starts on a hugely popular late-night Mexican radio show called La Mano Peluda, which translates to The Hairy Hand. It was hosted by Juan Ramon Sáenz. Listeners would call in, share their real-life paranormal encounters. You get the idea. So imagine tuning in for some spooky midnight stories, and instead, you hear a guy calmly confessing that he's been trying to contact Lucifer for 5 years. Crazy, right? Well, on this particular October night, a caller named Josue Velasquez dialed in from California. At first, Josue sounded perfectly normal. He politely congratulated Juan Ramon on the show's success. But, yeah, the pleasantries didn't last long. He completely dropped a bombshell, confessing that he'd been using a mysterious book of black magic to actively try and make contact with the darkest forces. And the contrast between Josue's life before and after these dark rituals is absolutely wild. Before the pact, we're looking at a young man who was broke and totally desperate. Since he was 14, he'd been failing at various jobs, just trying to support his financially struggling family. This intense desperation is what led him to that book of dark magic in the first place. He was so determined he literally taught himself Greek, Latin, and Hebrew just to perfectly execute the spells. But after the pact, the result was that Josue had become a highly successful parasitologist and bacteriologist analyst in the US. He was incredibly wealthy. But, as we're about to see, he was also deeply, deeply tormented. Section 2. The Ring of Solomon. So transitioning from a desperate teenager to a wealthy, tormented man involved an absolute nightmare. After years of rituals, Josue finally makes contact. But the entity that appeared, it didn't look like some horned monster. It actually appeared as a completely normal human. When Josue asked who he was, the demon chillingly replied, "You wanted to see me." It promised to grant Josue any wish, ultimate success, unlimited wealth, but in exchange, it demanded absolute obedience and a terrifying series of escalating sacrifices. And this brings us to a deeply disturbing escalation. According to the source material, the demands started small, right? Things like animal sacrifices, specifically goats. But then, the demon demanded an infant. Josue was completely horrified. He refused and tried to cut all ties. Well, 2 months of silence went by. Then, one night, Josue woke to a loud noise and found a giant, terrifying humanoid pig literally dragging his unconscious mother out of their house. I mean, can you even imagine waking up to that? He followed it to a cave on the outskirts of town where the creature shape-shifted into a man and a woman. To save his mother, Josue had to stay in that cave for 21 days performing dark rituals. Finally, the demon offered him ultimate power, the Ring of King Solomon, but with one horrific final condition. He had to sacrifice a family member. Live on the radio, weeping heavily, Josue confessed that he drugged and used a knife to sacrifice his own grandmother just to obtain that ring.
Okay, so he got his ultimate success, but the catch to this curse is just bizarre. The ring permanently fused to the flesh of his right hand. Like, he literally couldn't take it off. Demons would constantly visit him just to mock him for what he did to his grandmother. And the money? Sure, he earned massive wealth every single day, but he was forced to spend every last cent by midnight. He couldn't donate it, he couldn't save it, and he couldn't destroy it. In fact, one time he tried to give some money to a struggling construction worker. As punishment, he was violently attacked in his home by a terrifying, pale, footless demonic woman holding an inverted cross. Josue was trapped, he was terrified, and he was desperately begging the radio host for a way out.
Section 3. The Failed Live Exorcism. Now, the radio host, Juan Ramon, felt genuine sympathy for Jose and promised to help him. This led to what would become a disastrous live exorcism. The very next day, he brought a Catholic priest, Father Roberto Guaso, onto the show to pray for Jose over the phone. But Jose warned them it might already be too late. He tried to break the deal that morning, but the demons just laughed at him, chillingly stating, "What has been given cannot be returned." As the call started, Jose claimed 4 entities were already actively circling him inside his house. What happened next was a grueling 30-minute radio prayer broadcast to the entire nation. The host suggested reading Psalm 91 for protection, and Father Roberto began praying in the name of Jesus Christ, but it didn't help. It actually made things worse. Listeners tuning in reported hearing actual chilling, demonic laughter in the background of the call. Josue began to physically suffer, violent vomiting, a splitting headache, and sudden overwhelming suicidal thoughts. The torture became so incredibly intense that Josue literally begged them to stop the prayer. They ended the call, and Josue just disappeared completely. He cut all contact for nearly a decade.
Section 4. The 2011 return and the bizarre boat interview.
So, the story seemed to just end there. That is, until 2011, when a paranormal investigation TV show called Extra Normal somehow tracked Josue down. He actually agreed to an on-camera interview, but you have to hear these highly specific conditions he demanded. It really shows how deeply entrenched he still was. He demanded his face be hidden. He insisted the interview be filmed at night, specifically on a boat surrounded by water, claiming the water offered protection. But most strangely, he demanded that the original radio host, Juan Ramon Sáenz, absolutely must be present. During the interview, Josue brought out a dead human bone and various satanic symbols, holding them the entire time. And noticeably, he wore a thick black glove over his right hand, the exact hand where the cursed ring was fused.
It was an incredibly tense interview. Josue claimed demons were actively attacking him right there on the boat, which caused him to convulse violently at one point. But the absolute most chilling moment happened when they greeted each other. Despite going out of his way to hide that cursed ring under a black glove, Josue reached out and used that exact hand to shake hands with Juan Ramon. Almost immediately after this fatal handshake, Juan Ramon's behavior shifted. He became deeply restless, visibly struggling, and actually repeatedly clutched his chest in pain during the broadcast.
Section 5. The real-life tragedies.
All right, this is where the tone shifts significantly. We are moving from paranormal lore to hard, documented, real-world facts. Let's walk through this deadly timeline following that boat interview. Just a few days later, the show's cameraman, Luis Ernesto Gonzalez, suffers severe chest pain and is rushed in for emergency hernia surgery. Okay, shortly after that, the interviewer, Mario Estrada, is driving down an empty road when a car seemingly appears out of nowhere, runs him off the road into a pole, and he barely survives a near-death crash. But it gets so much worse. Exactly 10 days after the boat interview, the beloved radio host Juan Ramon Sáenz dies of respiratory arrest caused by a highly mysterious bacteria. And if that wasn't enough, just 1 week after that, Father Roberto Guaso, the priest from the original 2002 call, also dies under mysterious circumstances. When the public saw these real medical emergencies and tragic deaths, they definitely didn't believe in coincidences. Fans rigorously analyzed the footage of that boat interview. They started connecting the dots: the weird demands, the water, the dead human bone, the symbols, and most importantly, that glove and the handshake. The prevailing theory that emerged was that Josue deliberately used that boat interview as a dark ritual to transfer his curse, using Juan Ramon, the guy who first heard his confession, as the ultimate sacrifice to buy his own freedom.
Section 6. Escaping the Demonic Pact.
Following these tragic deaths, the Extra Normal team managed to reach out to Josue one last time. He completely denied having any personal bad intentions or involvement in their deaths, though he did admit the entities attached to him might have attacked them. But the team noticed something absolutely shocking. His right hand was bare. The fused ring was gone. When they asked how he finally detached it, he described this incredibly intense, risky final ritual. He gathered 7 priests, and they actually recreated the exact same ritual he used years ago to sacrifice his grandmother. But this time, when the demon appeared, instead of obeying, the priests repeatedly denied and contradicted the entity. This apparently caused extreme confusion for the demon. In that moment of absolute distraction, they grabbed Josue's hand and violently pulled at the fused ring. And just to give you an idea of how desperate they were, they literally had a machete on standby, ready to chop off his finger right then and there if the ring wouldn't budge. Miraculously, the ring slipped off. Josue claimed that was his final day involved in Satanism, and he just walked away completely.
Josue Velasquez would later go on to appear on various shows and podcasts, sharing his chilling story. And, that leaves us with a really profound question to wrap up this explainer. It's so easy to listen to the radio calls, the shape-shifting pigs, the demonic encounters, and just dismiss the whole shebang as a scripted urban legend for late-night TV. But if it was all just a made-up story, how do we explain the documented accidents, the sudden surgical emergencies, and the very real, very tragic deaths of Juan Ramon Sanz and Father Roberto Guaso? I mean, someone doesn't just give up their life to legitimize a scary story, right? So what really happened on that boat? I challenge you to look at the timeline, look at the evidence, and decide for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the unexplained.